is, however, that I've not been asked here to talk to you and have the privilege of meeting and talking with you because of any of those things, but rather because I'm the mayor of a great city that many of you may call home. I've been mayor for 2 years now, and throughout that time I have tried to do one thing consistently, and that is to be a straight shooter. It's kind of difficult for me, frankly, to be anything other than that. I told you earlier, because of my unique circumstances in high school, where I was the only African American in an all-white school, but I lived in an all-black neighborhood. Some people thought it made me a little schizophrenic. I thought it rounded me out quite well. Rounded me out because I got to see what people were talking about and compare what I heard to what I knew and saw. The stereotypes that I heard in my neighborhood about people of a different color did not match up to the reality that I experienced when I was having lunch with them at school. The stereotypes that were pervasive in some of the folks at school about my neighborhood did not match up to the reality of my neighborhood because I lived there. I believe that constant back and forth, that constant need, impetus, demand for me to examine what's said, what people believe versus what is real has made me a little bit unique. I tried to be unique and stay unique because I like the idea of not being who others may think I am. I've tried to do things differently at City Hall. Doing things differently and being different isn't enough just for the sake of doing it. These attributes are things that are needed in government today in order to do things a little bit differently than what we've been doing in the past. Also, doing things differently and being different isn't necessarily a virtue in politics. I can tell you quite frankly that I make my political consultants a little nervous from time to time. I have a tendency to actually say what I think, and that is something that is dangerous in politics. Last summer, we had an opportunity to examine some issues in Kansas City, long-standing. We've had infrastructure deferred maintenance that's estimated to be $6 billion. We've not touched it. It's a lot easier to kick that can down the road. It's easy to say that you couldn't build the support to do the hard things that needed to be done and just kick it on down the road. Somebody else will pick it up later and you can't be blamed for it. Can't do it. Can't look at things and just say it's good enough. It wasn't good enough. So what we did was we made some recommendations to give back a few small taxes in exchange for a different tax that would allow us to address our infrastructure needs in a significant way. I did not go into it with any rose-colored glasses on, thinking that people were going to jump up and down and cheer. But I did think that if we were honest with the people of the city, told them what was out there, what was needed, that we would prevail. And we needed to tell them that we all have needs in this city. The city itself has needs, and that everything that we need has a price tag attached to it. There is nothing that you can buy for nothing. Living in a world-class city and a first-class nation has costs. The clean water you drink straight from the tap has a cost attached to it. Street lights, sewers, parks, roadways, schools, sports everybody enjoys has a price tag on it. It's simply voodoo economics to think anything differently. You can't privatize everything that you need to do as a city. Some of it is absolutely essential, and even if you do privatize some of it, you're still going to pay a high cost. It has a cost. I freely admit to you to being a liberal. I do not see that as a bad word. I see it as a method of thinking. I'm also a Marine, but most of all, I am a pragmatic realist. Things don't improve or get better just by sitting around and wishing for it. It's a fairy tale made up by TV pundits. So last year, I proposed raising those taxes a small amount to deal with a 100-year-old infrastructure problem and issues that have been put off for the last few generations. And to the amazement of many, especially the media, the residents of Kansas City voted overwhelmingly to support that tax and tax themselves in order to take care of the business that they knew needed to be taken care of. It was such an astounding thing that we were getting phone calls from other mayors in other parts of the country asking how we managed to pull that off. Over 70% of the voters in Kansas City, not just one part of it, not just the white part, not just the black part, not the north, not the south, not the east, not the west, 70% across the entire city said yes. They saw the need, they knew it was going to be a cost, they accepted that cost as long as we kept our word about what we were going to do, and so far we have done exactly that. But there's other issues that have a lot of impact. One that is near and dear to my heart is the issue of education. And in Missouri, generally, the issue of education is a significant issue. It's one that makes political consultants very nervous. It's one that has so many opinions on it that it's almost like fighting against yourself just to get anything at all done. It's one of those issues that can make even a mild-mannered person emotional. The debate is often fueled by politics, rhetoric, special interests, and race. But the trick for me, after having stuck my toe into the buzzsaw of politics, rhetoric, special interests, and race a year and a half ago, the trick is to get to the kids who need education directly and avoid the structures that are supposed to deliver the education. Sidestep the nonsense, go to the heart of the matter. Avoid the politics, the rhetoric, the special interests, and the racial tension. It's easier said than done, but we think we've come up with a couple of ways to do it. And if you know anything about Kansas City, you know that Kansas City does have a perception of having an education issue. Some of you may have experienced it firsthand. One of the things is that only 33.8% of third graders read proficiently at third grade. 33.8%. Now keep in mind that third grade is where people who build prison cells decide how many they're going to need in 20 years. And they do it by looking at third grade proficiencies. Keep in mind, 4% of African American males of age are on college campuses, while 44% of that same age group is in prison. You think that's an accident? It's no accident. If your car only started 33.8% of the time, you think you keep it or get rid of it. If you only got your paycheck at your job 33.8% of the time, you think you'd start looking for a new job, you think you'd stay where you were. So if we know that only 33.8% of the time our children are reading proficiently at grade level at third grade, and if we know that that is an absolutely pivotal marker year in the educational life and career of a child, then why are we not being more upset about that? So before any of you who don't live in Kansas City say, well, you know, that ain't me, it's home to Kansas City, don't get smug on me. Let me tell you something.